Hey guys, so this week is National Infertility Awareness Week. Now this is a topic that is extremely sensitive and I really want to share my story or shed some light and positivity or hope and inspiration for anybody that might need it in this time. Now, everybody's story and experiences are different. This is obviously something that can be a little bit awkward to talk about. So yeah, I apologize if it does come off a little bit awkward. But I do feel like if this can help somebody, then it is totally worth it. And that is my absolute goal with this video. So I'm going to start with the backstory of myself. I have suffered with irregular or no periods whatsoever for like up to a year or even more since the day I have started. I started my period probably later than most. I think I was about 15 or 16. I was at a friend's sleepover at the time and I got my period. So I wasn't at home. I couldn't share the news with my mum or anything like that. So it was a little bit difficult and uncomfortable for me at the time. But I did have all of my girlfriends with me as well. So they kind of reassured me and we spoke about everything and I felt a lot better. So from then on, I think I got my period maybe like every 2 to 3 months. It was very inconsistent. But at that time, it wasn't really something that I really cared too much about. I was really young and carefree. I was also heavily into my dancing and I was very sporty. And when I told my GP, he just kind of put it down to the fact that I was very, you know, sporty and outgoing. I let it kind of go over my head. Then when I was 19, I got into my first serious relationship and I went on to the contraceptive pill. Now, when you are on the pill, you do get a period. However, it is not a natural period, so it's kind of more like your body is giving you a withdrawal from the pill. So I had my period from being on the pill. Then I came off of the pill when I split from my boyfriend at that time. So I was about 22 and I decided to give my body a bit of a break from being on the pill. My periods then was even worse than what they were before. I was having one every, say, 4 to 6 months. And I did also get into another serious relationship not too long after. And I think I went back on the pill for a little bit, but I came off it quite quickly because my body wasn't reacting to it very well. I just felt really kind of crappy on the pill, to be quite honest. And then I spoke to my GP about the fact that my periods were still so irregular. Again, they were just kind of telling me the same thing. To be honest, they were a little bit useless. He was just telling me it's because of my weight and height, and I was so small and very athletic. So that then started to take a little bit of a toll on me, and I got myself into a state of mind where I started to think that I needed to maybe put weight on, but then I got into a vicious cycle because I wasn't putting weight on. Then I ended up actually losing weight. I had a lot of stuff going on also within my career at that time. My relationship actually ended like after 3 years. But yeah, so although I was going through a rough time, I was like, well, my periods have never been regular anyway, so surely it's not down to just the fact that, you know, I've got some things going on in my life right now. So I wanted to get to the root of the problem and understand why my body wasn't having periods. Then I ended up actually moving to London, and when I moved to London, I got a new GP. So I just kind of thought, this is a fresh start. I'm going to tell them everything. Maybe they can give me some advice that I haven't had yet. They actually referred me on and I had some ultrasounds. I had an internal and external. My results came back fine, which just left me feeling even more confused. I was obviously really happy that the results came back fine. You know, there was no trace of polycystic ovaries or anything along those lines. But then I was just a little bit lost as to why am I not having periods if everything is okay. And then I ended up moving out eventually by myself. Now, in the mix of all of this, I've obviously met my partner now, Jay, who I am with. obviously. By this point, we'd been together for quite a while and I still hadn't had a period in a really long time. And I was starting to get really, kind of frustrated. So when I moved out by myself, I was living in a flat not too far from where we live now. And I had another new GP. So when I got this new GP, I was like, okay, again, this is another fresh start. Let's start again and see where I end up. I had another round of ultrasounds done again. The results came back exactly the same as before. Everything was fine. I was like, I don't understand. And even the GP, didn't have a reason as to why this would be happening. So they referred me onto the waiting list to see a gynecologist. Now, a gynecologist basically specialises in everything to do with like hormones, fertility, infertility. They referred me on, but the waiting list was about 6 months long. I decided in that time to be a little bit proactive, and I did my own online research. I came across a forum of women who were basically raving about acupuncture. I'd kind of briefly heard about acupuncture for hormones and fertility before, but never really kind of thought about doing it myself until I came across this forum, and the success stories and the success rates were just so amazing and so high. So I kept looking into it, I kept researching. Then I ended up actually having a Skype one-on-one meeting with a gynecologist from America. I paid to have this like Skype session. He went over everything with me. He asked for like all of my results and yada yada, and then he put it down to the fact that everything looks fine, everything is coming back positive. So I think it's because your body is basically just not ovulating, and that is why you are not getting your period. He was like, there usually isn't any kind of major issues with this. You will just have to go on a pill called Clomid that will help your body naturally ovulate, and you will get a period as normal. So I was like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better, because obviously either way, that's a positive outcome. But I was still upset for the fact that I obviously was ovulating at some points. It was just never consistent, and it was extremely spread out and irregular. By this point, I want to mention I haven't had a period for over a year, but I'd also kind of got to a point where I'd just accepted it for what it was. Obviously not accepted it because I was still, going through so many different appointments on waiting lists, etc. But I wasn't like as depressed about it as what I used to be. So I was kind of just working really hard, and this was all going on in the background of my life at the same time. And then I think it was the same day that I had the appointment with the gynecologist, and I was going to the shop. I went to Waitrose to get some dinner, as you do. A couple doors down, there was a tiny little shop not too far from where I was living. On the window, it was like specialising in acupuncture for fertility, stress, anxiety and depression. I was like, okay, this is really freaky. I've just been Googling it. What is the chances? So anyway, I went into the shop and I spoke to the lady. As soon as I walked in, she was so calming, and I just instantly felt like I had got more from her in the 15-minute chat that we had than what I ever had over the course of the years with my GP. So she broke everything down. She got out her guest book and she was showing me all her success stories with all the women that she had dealt with, and I was honestly close to tears. It was really touching to know that she had helped out all of these women in such tough times. After that, I was like, okay, I'm in. I don't care. This isn't the most cheapest route to go down, but I'm totally happy to try it if it means that it's going to give me something that I cannot do by myself, and it's also natural, so it will be a lot better for my body. So I signed up for the first 6 weeks of acupuncture, and I just went week by week. She was always asking me and reassuring me how are you feeling? What are you going through? Another thing she also pointed out was have you ever suffered with any kinds of infections? I have always suffered with reoccurring water infections. And she was like, okay, so it does sound a little bit like this could be like a hormone imbalance. She basically said you need to balance everything out, get rid of the bad toxins, flush everything out, and it's almost like you're starting afresh. On the first week, she also gave me these 2 separate pills, the Chinese herbal supplements. I did take them for the first week, but for me they just was like upsetting my tummy a little bit. So I know that other women that she was also assisting to was taking these and they were fine, but for me they just wasn't really working. So I decided to stop taking them. She was like, that's absolutely fine, just carry on with the acupuncture, like you're doing really well. Yeah, so within about 4 weeks or so of seeing her, I could honestly notice that there was obvious changes happening within my body. I could feel that my breasts were starting to feel a little bit sore, but I also didn't want to put too much pressure on myself. I didn't want to believe that this was 100% going to work and then for me to just kind of go back to square one. So then on my 5th week, I went back and she was like, how are you feeling? And I was like, I really feel different. Like, I really feel like this is maybe going to happen, but I don't want to believe it just in case it doesn't. And then it was 2 days after that appointment that I got my first period after a whole year. Well, actually by this point it was over a year. Honestly, I remember like calling my mum and being like, Mum, I got my period. She was like, most people are like, oh great, I've got my period. But for me, it was like just the biggest thing that could have happened in my life. At that point, I just waited for so long for that moment. I honestly got to a place where I thought, when it comes to the point of maybe wanting to start a family, I'm gonna need help. It was just in the back of my mind, this wasn't going to be, an easy journey for me. After about another 2 or 3 weeks, I started to feel a little bit rubbish within myself, and I was actually away on a family holiday in Center Parcs and I had another water infection. By this point, I'd gone from a major high to feeling like I'd come crashing down back to square one, and I got so upset about it. And then when I went back to see the acupuncture lady, she was just so amazing, honestly. And she was like, you know, these things happen, your body is still getting rid of all the toxins, you need to eat lots of watermelon, you need to eat lots of lamb, and this will help rebuild your hormones. So I kind of lived on watermelon for breakfast and lamb for dinner. A couple weeks after that, I went back and she was asking how I was feeling. I was like, yeah, so much better. I think I had like a cold at the time, but I was like, yeah, I feel so much better within myself. I definitely feel like, you know, I'm going to be getting my period again soon. Like, my boobs feel sore again. So she was kind of like preparing for that. And then my period didn't come. So then I went again the following week and she asked again how I'm feeling. I kind of said the same thing and it still didn't come. So I decided to take randomly, because I'd never done one before, an ovulation test just to see if I was maybe ovulating. Then I knew I would be getting my period soon. So I took an ovulation test and straight away it came up positive, and I was like, okay, this is amazing, like I'm gonna be getting my period again soon, this is like really working. And then cut to a couple days went by and I still didn't get my period, so I was a little bit confused about that, but kind of just cracked on as normal with my days. And then I had my next week of acupuncture. I told her what happened and she looked at me a little bit confused but didn't really say too much. She was like, maybe you should take another one just to see. And I was like, yeah, maybe I was seeing things. So then the day after that I took another ovulation test and it came back even brighter and even more positive. And this had been like a week since my last one. So by this point, I'm now thinking, okay, something's a little bit weird because you don't ovulate for a week straight. When I looked up online, it did say that ovulation test strips can pick up sometimes pregnancy hormones, but I was like, there is absolutely no way. I've only just had my first period after a whole year. But then I was like, maybe I should just take one anyway, just to be safe. I had like an old one left over in a box, just like a Sainsbury's one. And it was about 11 o'clock at night. I was having a shower. I took the test. I got in the shower. I honestly wasn't thinking about it too much. It was just something that I was doing just to be safe. When I got out the shower, I dried myself and then I looked at the test and it was beaming positive, and I was like, oh, honestly, like I'm still speechless. Like, it still blows my mind to think that after all this time I've got to this point, and now I'm 28 weeks the following day, and yeah, we are expecting a baby boy in July. And obviously if I didn't fall pregnant, I would have had another period, so there's no way that is a coincidence that I didn't have a period for a year and then it started the minute I started having acupuncture. And there is just so many success stories with acupuncture. Obviously everybody's situations are different. This is just my personal experience and what worked for me, but I did try a hell of a lot of things before getting to this point. I researched so many things, I tried so many different herbal like supplements, and nothing seemed to work for me. Tried different types of yoga, and this is the only thing that really gave me a light at the end of a very dark tunnel. This is something that's very close to my heart because I feel like it's something that I struggled with since I was, 15, 16, when I very first started my period. It's been a very up and down roller coaster ride. So to get to this point, it was just extremely overwhelming. And if it wasn't for the fact that I came across the shop near my flat, then I wouldn't be sitting here making this video. So I really hope that this can give you a little bit of hope if you are struggling, if you haven't had a period in maybe, 6 months to a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I hope this can help somebody out there. If you would like to know anything more about the acupuncture or my personal experience, please reach out to me. My messages are always open. You can leave messages in the comments, or you can reach out to me on my Instagram and I will happily get back to all of you. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say to round this video up. I wish you guys well and lots of love and positivity. If you are going through any kind of infertility struggles, we are all in this together, and yeah, I will catch you guys all in my next video next Friday. Bye guys!